Hi, I'm Christine Tulley. I'm a senior writing coach with Defend and Publish, and this is episode 4 in our January podcast series about resetting your writing. You can find all of our podcast episodes at Defend and Publish if you go to the podcast section. These episodes are designed to build on each other, but you don't have to hear all of them if you're just joining us for the first time. And this episode is about upping your writing game. And so what we're going to look at today are 2 strategies that you can use in your writing sessions to get a little bit more out of the time you spend when you sit down to write. So in the previous episodes, I asked listeners to go ahead and look at doing a priority project for the first 6 weeks of the year. And so that would be like January 1st to middle of February. And one of the priority projects that you might choose could be an article. It could be a scholarly conference presentation, a white paper, a book chapter, whatever it is you want to work on. But you're only really working on just that one project. And then the second thing that I asked last week was for you to look at that project and determine all the tasks that have to take place for you to complete that project and just sort them into high mental energy tasks and low mental energy tasks. High mental energy tasks are tasks where you're not totally sure what you need to do next. Sometimes they're big thinking problems where you really need to think through the structure of your writing. You need to think through organization. You might need to develop or explain something better. You might need to clarify what it is you're arguing. Or you might need to read your data and really understand what it is you have. So these are all like very big mental type things. The low energy things are tasks that you know what to do. Even if they take a long time, you know what it is that you need to do. So for example, reword a title, change a documentation style, look at sources, maybe explain a source a little bit better. Things that you, even if they're hard, or you could still do them, you know what to do. So big difference between those two. I also recommend it on Mondays or whatever your first writing day is for the week. For some of you, it might be Sunday, is to always make sure you deal with some of those high energy or high mental energy tasks right at the beginning of the week. So I'm kind of a big believer of writing on Sunday or Monday, whatever your first day of your week is. It's kind of like going to the gym. So if you go, Monday, then you'll go the rest of the week. Same thing with writing. And I know last time I also mentioned trying to write at least 8 to 10 hours a week. And if you can devote half of that time to those higher mental energy things, you're going to move the needle on your writing a little bit more because you're thinking through the big problems and not just fiddling around with the little stuff. So that's all well and good. But I also wanted to say what you can do to up your writing game, knowing all that going into this next week. And there's 2 strategies I'm going to recommend. One of them is stretching your Monday into the rest of the week, which I'll describe how that happens in a second. And the second one is playing with your paragraphs. So stretching your Monday into the rest of the week goes like this. If you grapple with a high energy, high mental energy problem, whatever the challenge, if you want to call it that, if you do that in your first writing session, if you can manage to hang on and think through that problem through the rest of Monday, so even if your writing session is over and you really just try to keep that problem or what you were working on in your mind all day, that Tuesday session will come a little easier. It really will. And then you'll be able to think through, go back to that major problem and think through what it is you're working on. So let me give you an example. On Monday, I do this myself. I always look for a high mental task, some big challenge or some big problem I need to deal with. Here was my big problem. I mentioned that I'm working on a book about the writing practices of academic mothers in rhetoric and composition. I'm working on a chapter right now that's about the relationship between mothers who have administrative work and how much they publish or how many hours they spend on scholarly writing. So I knew that's what the chapter was. Well, what I really hadn't sorted out is why it matters. And what I had to really think about this. I actually just took 15 minutes to sit at a desk in the library and think about this. And what I came up with was, at least in my discipline, most of the jobs are asking for administrative experience pre-tenure. So if you're in an administrative position that causes you to do a lot of extra busy work and you're not able to do your own writing, so, you might need one of these podcasts, that is a concern, right? That would be one of the relationships. And that got me thinking to a lot of other things that I could do in that particular chapter. So one of the things that is a big argument in my discipline, for example, that came to me while I was thinking is that there's some arguments that people really like to do administrative work and the administrative work is their scholarship. So that was a whole other piece that I had not really thought about, and I know I need to address. So I was kind of excited about how I was going to work with that. And I found that I was able to tie together a couple of threads just by looking in my chapter and kind of weaving that content I just shared with you. So I was doing some writing, I was doing some thinking, but I was really trying to puzzle out a big piece that's going to make a big difference in whether anybody buys my book. Where, rather than tampering with something that maybe was like a low level concern, that's a big major thread in an argument in the book. So long story short, stretching your Monday then, and how I carried it out is I normally write, I mention this all the time, from like 10 a.m. to noon, if I can. That's what I would like to do every day. And I try to do it every weekday. So let's say that's what I was doing on Monday. At noon, I had to run home. My daughter was getting off the bus. My writing session was cut short. So I scribbled down kind of a hasty note that I can't even read that, kind of tried to capture the excitement about what I was thinking about. But what I did was I made a really mental, like, I don't know how to say this better than this, but like a mental lock on that idea. And I just kept it in my mind all day. I really kind of thought about it. I struggled, kind of thought about it all day long. I did write a couple of notes on a Post-it that I just had handy when I was working on something else, but it just kind of kept that in the forefront of my mind. And I also remembered, tried to think about it right before I went to bed. So they always say you process stuff in your sleep. And what happened for me then is that when I went to my Tuesday writing session, I knew right where I wanted to dive in. And I felt like I was doing, some real major tinkering in a chapter. I wasn't messing around with something small. I was really getting some good content. I wrote a lot of new content on that Tuesday. So and then my idea, and I have not tested this out because I wasn't able to do a writing session today on a Wednesday, when the day that I'm recording this, I had no time for any writing. But what I'm going to try to do is then stretch that again, is do another high mental energy task session and then try to carry it through the week. Because what I found is, say in my Tuesday session, I was doing all those lower level concerns. I was doing revising, I was fixing sentences, I was changing wording, but I wasn't doing it in a methodical way off of a to-do list. And I think that's where some of these writing sessions that we're trying to do as faculty go all wrong, because we come in with a big list of tasks we have to do that are, kind of big picture things mixed in with small picture things. And it just doesn't move the needle that much. You're sitting there, you're doing some work, you feel like you're doing some work, but you're never like closing the loop and actually like pushing your arguments forward or getting closer to completion. So it's not to say those small tasks are a bad idea. You definitely have to do them. And you might even need to devote a day to like busy work here or there. But I would argue to push that busy work day to the end of the week and try to hit a Thursday or a Friday with that type of work, instead of having like a Tuesday or a Monday or a Tuesday kind of relationship with it. It just seems like it's a better way to go, to try to knock out those high mental energies. So stretch your Monday. Hopefully that made sense. And then the second thing that I would recommend is to play with paragraphs. And this is what you do when you don't really have one of those bigger picture things that you're working through, or you might be close to the end of a project. Maybe you've already written a draft, you've kind of thought through the big arguments, you sort of know what you want to say, but you're getting to the point where you want to make sure that everything's very clear. Patricia Goodson has a great formula on becoming an academic writer, where she, and I'm going to check this just to make sure I say it to you right, she has offered this formula where she says you want to, every paragraph uses a transition plus one key idea, and then you develop that key idea. I love that formula. It's very simple, but it works really well when you're looking at paragraphs and you want to do something with that paragraph, but you don't want to just revise or just edit where you're tweaking with wording. If you're forced to look at that paragraph and figure out what is the point of this paragraph, what is the main idea I'm trying to get across here, that is a big help. And in fact, I've actually done this. I did this last week when I was working in a different chapter. I really wanted to go paragraph by paragraph and figure out what is a point I'm trying to make. So it's a little bit more than saying what's the topic sentence of the paragraph, because that's something that's like a function of what the wording is doing. But if you're just looking at a paragraph, you read the paragraph in isolation, and I really did do this. I covered up, both parts of it, and I just read the part in the middle. it does help to really think through what is it that that paragraph is doing. If it's giving us a key idea, it has a purpose it's serving in the writing. And answering that question really helped, because I could find that in some cases I had two ideas in a paragraph and I could split it and generate some new content by developing both of those new paragraphs. In other cases, I had a couple of paragraphs that honestly I didn't need. They were just repeating some other content where I had it earlier. And in that case, I kind of looked at the two paragraphs that seemed to be saying the same sort of thing in different places, and I just kept the one I liked better. So this is a really good way, again, to kind of stay with higher mental energy things where you're thinking about what the writing is doing versus about just saying, well, I'm going to write 1,000 words a day or something like that. I mean, it's all well and good to have one of those kinds of goals too, if that gets you to do some of the writing. But in addition to generating new content, and that's a great strategy for generating new content, you have to actually then think about what all that new content is doing. And so I would argue, if you're going to up your writing game, stretching your Monday and really thinking through those big questions through the whole week. And then again, with your paragraphs, when you're actually getting in and working with the writing, thinking about those key ideas. They're kind of two sides of the same coin, but I think that they'll really up what you're doing in your writing sessions. And you might not be so compelled to just think through, smaller tasks you might need to cross off, or at least save those till the end of the week. And even for times, if you have to sandwich in some of your writing time, maybe you've got some writing time that's not really great. Maybe you've got, 10 minutes in the car while you're waiting, to pick somebody up, or you've got some other waiting time. Some of those lower energy tasks are great to tackle during those times. But if you can, carve out that nice block of some good mental time on Monday, that might help really stretch through to the rest of the week. And then the playing with the paragraphs would be the other side of that. I also want to talk to you about some of the services that Defend & Publishes offers for that might be of interest to you. One of those services is that we offer a free 30-minute consultation on your writing. So if you're not sure if a writing coach might be right for you, why don't you try one with us? You've got nothing to lose, and it's just a short 30-minute consultation. But you remember one of those big picture problems that we just talked about? Wouldn't it be great to talk about one of those problems with a writing coach and maybe get some feedback in on one of our free sessions? So you're welcome to do that. And if you're interested in trying that, you can go to defendandpublish.com and then click services, and you'll be able to see a spot to schedule a consultation in that way. Happy writing, and I'll see you in February with a brand new podcast series for the month.